Welcome to the Fear and Greed Business Interview. I'm Sean Aylmer. As an asset class, private equity has a reputation for a couple of things: delivering some impressive returns and also being the domain of the big end of town. But Pacific Equity Partners, the largest and most active private markets fund manager in Australia, is making it more accessible with the launch of a new strategy to give individuals access to global private equity. It's a good opportunity for us to get a 101 on the asset class more broadly, the pros, the cons, the returns, and who it might appeal to. Remember, this is general information only, and you should seek professional advice before making investment decisions. Cameron Blanks is the Managing Director of Pacific Equity Partners, a great supporter of this podcast. Cameron, welcome to Fear and Greed.
Thanks for inviting me on, Sean.
So, we've all heard about private equity and particularly Pacific Equity Partners. You've been around for a long time, but just, for listeners there, explain who you are and how you invest.
Yeah, so we've been in the private markets in Australia and New Zealand for the last 26 years. We really focus on a sector of the private equity landscape, which is a late stage private equity. So these are established, profitable firms that often have a market leadership position that we're looking to invest in to help transform the profits and the growth trajectories of those businesses. So that's the part of the market that we focus on here in Australia and New Zealand. And then we have been doing that same, investing alongside funds like ourselves globally in that same part of the private equity landscape. Now, the private equity markets are very large these days. They're around about 12.5 trillion of assets under management globally. And there's a lot of different segments of private equity. So we don't do any venture capital type investing. So no early stage investments. It's all established big businesses that we invest behind. So as a 101, it's really important to understand the investment philosophy of the firms that you're investing behind, and understanding the different parts of the private markets before you do invest.
Okay, so I might ask you just to dig a little deeper into your investment philosophy. Like what exactly are you looking at? I get that you're not doing VC, you're kind of more mature companies. What attracts you to a company?
Yeah, so Sean, for us, we start with the market structure, and the market itself is the market growing for a business that we're investing in. So given that we are looking for market leaders, these do tend to be, larger businesses that have been around for a long time. And often we're looking for these types of market leaders that are underperforming, their full potential, if you like. And our philosophy is, coming in with, a great leadership team with a very clear plan to do 2 or 3 things differently than have been done in the past, with an aim to double the profits of the business. We typically find these opportunities are often divisions of multinational companies or very large Australian companies, sort of unloved division, if you like, or public companies that have really lost their way in the public markets. That tends to be the type of companies that we're investing behind. There's obviously other private equity firms, and occasionally we do also invest into private companies, but generally it's public companies and subsidiaries of larger companies that we're targeting.
So give us a couple of examples over the last decade or so that PEP have gotten into.
Yeah, so look, the easiest one to explain is Peters Icecream. So this was a company that everybody's familiar with, the makers of Drumsticks and Connoisseur and the like. It's a duopoly market structure with streets, and Peters was owned before we acquired it by Nestle. It's a $100 billion food conglomerate out of Switzerland that's a pretty well-known name to most people. Essentially, it's a chocolate and coffee company, is Nestle, and this was the only ice cream division that they had around the world. Very good business, good, strong market leadership position in its categories, but was really lost within the Nestle system. So there's a great example of a corporate carve-out where we were able to come in, sort of separate it from the parent, give it its own management team, its own focus, its own capital structure, and really drive that business in a way where we more than doubled the profits over a 2 or 3 year period, and then sold the business to a global consolidator of ice cream companies around the world. So that's a great example of the type of investments we make, and one that's very relatable given it's ice cream.
Stay with me, Cameron. We'll be back in a minute. My guest today is Cameron Blanks, Managing Director of Pacific Equity Partners. Okay, for many people, when they think about investing, they think equities, which trade on the ASX, and they think about bonds. We're talking about private markets here, which increasingly are opening up to more and more investors. Before we talk about how that's happening and what you're doing, what is it about, in this case, private equity as an asset class? What are the benefits of that to an investor who is looking, not necessarily at a 1 or 2 year time horizon, but a 3, 5, 10-year time horizon? Why get interested in private equity?
Well, firstly, the private markets have outperformed the public markets by a considerable margin for a very long period of time. Why is that? It's because we believe it's because of a superior governance model. In the private equity environment, it's a real partnership between the management teams of those companies and the shareholders or the private equity firm. There's no large boards. It's typically, a real partnership with management. So you've got that connectivity between shareholder and management in a much closer, targeted manner that, is able to go ahead and execute a strategy rather than thinking about quarterly and 6-monthly reporting, in a public markets environment. So that's what we put the superior performance of private markets down when compared to the public markets, that focus and ability to go and execute a strategy, in a private environment.
It's sort of always been a big end of town product, private equity, but you've got a new offering out, bringing it to more wholesale investors. What is the product and who are you targeting? Who are the sorts of investors that can suddenly get involved in PE, whereas previously they may not have been able to?
Yeah, so probably before we go into our product, maybe to explain why it's been such a difficult sector for individual investors to access. If you think about the origins of private equity, it was really an institutional product that was designed for large institutions to provide backing to private equity firms to seek out opportunities and execute those over a 10-year period. So in the private equity world, you end up with these call structures, if you like, they're called, where institutional investors are committing money to a private equity firm, and that private equity firm draws down on that money over a 4 or 5 year period as it finds deals or companies to buy, and then returning that money over another 4 or 5 year period. There's no liquidity during that time, and the minimums are very high. So it's never really been a very accessible product to individual investors. So the way that we've actually solved that problem is through the PEP Gateway program. And what this program does is it's put an all-star set of great private equity products into an Australian management investment trust where investors can come in and out of the fund on a monthly basis. And we do that by establishing a clear unit price at the end of each month to enable investors to come in and out. We're then using our networks to invest in the best opportunities on a global basis next to managers like ourselves in the Australian market, but sitting in North America and Europe that we know through being in private equity industry for 26 years. We know the principles of those firms, and we're investing alongside of them into their star trophy assets.
Okay, so if I'm an investor and I'm interested in the PEP Gateway product and it's unit pricing, so every month I know what it's worth, what sort of investors are you trying? You're not looking for traders, obviously. What sort of investors are you looking for this product?
Yeah, so look, it's available to wholesale investors. People can go to our website and get some more details at pepgateway.com.au. And really, it's about investors who want to have access to the best in private equity globally in a format that means that, if their life circumstances change, it's a minimum entry price of only $50,000. And if their life circumstance change over a period of time, they can withdraw that money and take the realised benefits during the period that they've been invested. So it really is a great product for most wholesale investors to really broaden their exposure, outside of the traditional property or shares or term deposits is a great way to diversify access to the private markets.
Are there many competitors? Do you have many competitors in this space in Australia? Like, I don't know of many off the top of my head.
No, it's a reasonably unique offering, the way that we do this. There are a few other products on the market that have been around for a little while, but they tend to be more fund-of-fund type products where this is really targeted around all-star assets. And again, most of those other products are actually managed in New York or London. So we're really one of the only local firms that have the scale, history and expertise to deliver this type of product to Australian investors.
Well, good luck with it, Cameron, and thank you for talking to Fear and Greed.
Thank you very much, Sean.
That was Cameron Blanks, Managing Director of Pacific Equity Partners, a great supporter of this podcast. This is the Fear and Greed business interview. Remember, this is general information only, and you should always seek professional advice before making investment decisions. Join us every morning for the full episode of Fear and Greed, daily business news for people who make their own decisions. I'm Sean Aylmer. Enjoy your day.